MyRadio580 AM to the session as well. Welcome here. I just want to the important part which I have discussed and did with the weight like a husband. In weight in the ward I public school trustees who can get certification she can get from the certification. That's a proper protocol and follow the way over protocol. As a while, citizen it will like so let me welcome all the candidates. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you very much for coming. We will celebrate very important part of the democracy. Probably we will continue with all the format we have set up for today, and we will start the debate with one by one. We have, first of all, I'll mention all the candidates we have among us. Ricardo Casanova, thank you very much. And we have Tanvi from what? Thank you very much, Tanvi. Simran Billing, Simran, thank you very much for coming today. Navjot Kaur, thank you very much. Emily Mackenzie, thank you very much. And Jane Sarah, thank you very much. Welcome. And first of all, we will follow the format strictly and we'll give you the signal when your time is over. So please follow the signal. And now we will start with Ricardo Casanova. Please come to the podium and introduce yourself. And you have 2 minutes. First, 2 minutes to talk about yourself and your background and whatever you decide. Okay.
I'm Ricardo Casanova. I'm the president of
If you can take off your mask, okay, I would appreciate that. Sure. Yeah, otherwise it won't be clear on the here. Yes, thank you.
I'm currently the president of the Rural Community League. I've been involved in my community quite extensively for the last 20 years. I've been coaching soccer for 20 years in the woods. I'm currently the president of YG Soccer as well. I'm a board member with Edmonton Culture, which works to bring lived experiences through art and diversity and inclusion. I was the director of the Top of the City Festival as well. My friends make fun of me because I do too much volunteer work. So I'm a big advocate for inclusion, diversity. I grew up in Millwoods. I went to Minnesota, Danlaw, in the 90s, which was kind of a rough spot at the time. And I believe that the way to a better society is starting young and having our children feel inclusive. Because when there's a lack of sense of belonging, that's when kids start to stray and get into trouble. And I've seen that firsthand. I've lived that firsthand. So I really believe that our education system needs to have an element of bringing that, I guess, a different way of doing things, or a unique way of doing things. And post-COVID, I think our mental health of our kids is going to be a significant challenge. We don't know the impacts quite yet, but we will see, I think, very shortly, the negative impacts of COVID. We're not even out of it yet. So we don't know the true full impacts of it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. And the other candidate, thank you so much for telling us about yourself. Jen, Sarah, thank you so much for taking your time and please tell us about yourself.
Sure. I'm Jen Sawyer, and I care deeply about education and the student, staff, and community within our schools. I've been incredibly proud to work with Edmonton Public Schools for 35 years as a teacher, curriculum coordinator, assistant principal, and principal, including 10 years as a principal in Ward at Saskatoon and John Manning School. I've worked in a diverse number of programs, including early education, arts, Cree language programs, as well as a variety of special needs. I've worked from kindergarten all the way up to Center High. So I've got a lot of experience in education, and I obviously am committed to it. I have a master's in educational leadership and an understanding of Ward I. Additionally, I understand Edmonton Public School works. I understand how it works. I understand its policies and procedures. And one of the most rewarding parts of my career has been working with families to help students be successful in their schooling journey. And as a trustee, I'd like to continue with that. I've worked with diverse families and learners. I've experienced in problem solving. I have a clear understanding of what excellent teaching and learning is. And I've developed a compassionate solution-based approach to working with others.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to request Cindy to please come to the podium and give us opening statement and entry and what are your thoughts on that? Please, thank you.
I'd just like to start off by saying my name is Simon Dillon, and I would like to thank Mrs. Claire and Mr. Booker for holding this debate today. Also, a warm welcome to the rest of the candidates. I know how hard we've all been working, especially with the challenges brought on by COVID. I think it's safe to say that no matter who wins, Ward I will be represented by a worthy trustee who has the ward's best interests in mind. And having said that, I'd like to say a few words about myself. I've lived in Edmonton my whole life, grew up and went to school in Ward I. Apart from running this campaign, I've been successfully running my family business for many years, and I'm also currently completing my diploma in digital media and information technology at Date. Over the years, I've also dedicated a lot of time to many different organizations, volunteering to those organizations such as Breaking the Silence, which is a mental health organization, and the Punjab United Sports Heritage Association. And in terms of our schools, I believe there are very few things that matter more than a strong public education system. Education is a community endeavor, and I'm passionate about bringing people together, listening to diverse perspectives, and working with others to make our education system a safe and inclusive space for all. In addition, being a recent graduate and going through the school system in Ward I know firsthand the challenges and gaps that our students face every day. I'm able to bring the first-hand experience to the school board and help implement changes that actually mean something. And being so young, I can also strongly connect with students and effectively communicate their concerns.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Our next candidate who's going to speak for herself is Emily McKenzie. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Sorry.
No.
Hi, I'm Emily McKenzie. I'm a marketing professional and I'm a candidate for I. I kind of ended up becoming an activist for special needs kids by necessity. I have two children, both of whom are disabled and require substantial support in schools. And when it was time for them to enter public school, I realized, first off, that schools all over the cities had different standards for what they offer. Some had substantially more resources than others. And there were not a lot of great options within public school, and a lot of my peers were finding themselves pushed out of the system by a lack of options for their children. So largely why I want to be involved is because I think public schools can and should serve everyone in a community. No one should ever feel pressured to leave, and that means there shouldn't be income barriers, there should not be any sort of discrimination based on race, sexuality, any of that. And disabled children need inclusive support to truly be a part of their communities as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And we have our next candidate. Commissioner, you would like to
Yes, Mr. Tanvi, no, thank you, Tanvi. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys for having me and having all of us for letting us talk. I would like to start by talking about myself. My name is Terry St. Genoa. I'm a post-secondary student in accounting, finishing up my last semester, and also I am an apprentice for automotives, but gained a lot of experience in trades. Through high school, I'm going to junior high, elementary, and high school in Ward I. Well, high school is university, which is outside Ward I though. I know the needs of students and what the education system is lacking. As a recent graduate, I know what the students need to get the right education. Of course, what the families require, like as I've been door knocking, I know the concerns I've been hearing, and teachers and what they are lacking. Lately, with COVID going on, teachers they would feel isolated, overwhelmed with having a lot of pressure. It's like 30 kids in one classroom. That's a lot of pressure teachers have to face. We want to make sure they're getting the right support mentally and financially. And I've done a lot of volunteer work. Let's start off with United Aid. I've been managing United Aid. It's a non-profit organization where we go out, help the less fortunate, and help the community. Also, I've done a lot of volunteer work with diverse students, like students with diverse needs. Volunteer with Alphabet Daycare and Red Deer. We would connect with them there where they would develop a program for those with autism, develop skills that promote physical, social, and emotional skills. So, I just want to come out here, help out the community. And if I do this when I'm 40, there's going to be a generation gap. I won't be able to connect with the students. So right now, it's the perfect time.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And Navjot Kaur, thank you so much for waiting so patiently. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Please tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much for organizing, for my colleagues to be here with me today. My name is Navjot Kaur. Sat Sri Akal, Namaste, Salam. A little bit about me. I was born and raised here in the south side of the woods. I am a teacher by profession. I also have a master's in education policy as well from the University of Alberta. So I have deep roots in education research, policy, and also classroom teaching as a frontline worker. I also have a BA from University of Calgary, where I worked in immigration settlement. So I worked a lot with people who have English as a second language. I myself speak 3 languages, including Spanish, where I studied in university. I believe strongly in advocating for families who have multiple languages. I myself have lived experience with mental health, addiction in my own family. I think the Punjabi community definitely knows a little bit of my story. In terms of my volunteer experience, I've been working a lot with the workers' rights and other groups advocating for protecting our most vulnerable. I would like to thank everybody who's standing actually across the fields. This election is very important. This election specifically is very important. Our school board is turning over. The same people are not going to be sitting there that have been sitting there. It's a whole new session. It will look very different next year in this coming election. So I want to thank everybody in our community for voting and listening to us deeply, really considering the person who can talk to teachers, talk to families, and talk to our community members out there who are in their language, right? And again, of course, centering our youth. Our youth are the most important. So thinking of the quality of education today, in 10 years, what is that going to look like? Those policies today matter, and that's why I'm here and I put my name forward.
Thank you very much. My first question would be, I have received many calls. People are saying, like in this election, there's not enough attention being paid on this school trustee election part of the election. So one reason for this debate is to highlight how important this tick mark is. It's about the schooling, it's about our kids, it's about our future. What do you think that public schools should, have election done separately than city, or it should be the way it is going right now? I'll start with you now, and we'll go from other way around. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but I do think that because the funding that is received by Edmonton Public Schools is attached to your property taxes, right? So I think that's why when you're voting for mayor, it's on that same, even though it's not at the top, it's at the bottom, it's on that same piece of paper. And I think that's really important for us to connect, that we are, our trustees are accountable to us, just as the mayor is accountable to you as your voter, so is your local trustee, and that's very important. I think that we need to be very concerned with the influence of political parties at a municipal level, and I think that is a very important indicator of the amount of money that's being put into trustee campaigns, when they should very much be grassroots in the local community, talking about our children. So really thinking about who is organizing these trustee campaigns at the municipal level. I know we talk about it with councillors, who is getting involved, but I think at the trustee level, it's also very imperative, especially at this election time. This one is an important one. I'll say that last. Maybe I'll say that every time.
Thank you so much. And thank you. What would you say about that?
Well, 100%. I think it's a lot of parents, especially while growing up, a lot of parents don't even know what school board trustee is, what the rules are. All they care about is like mayor and city council. That's what their main focus is. And they pay taxes. Then their kids go to school. They want to know what their children is getting the right education, right? it should be separate for sure, so that they know what the roles are, who their voice is going to be on the public school board, and who they're going to be representing. Because right now, a lot of voters are undecided. They're just going voting, just doing random, the first name this week. That's all I'd say.
Thank you very much. Emily Mackenzie, thank you so much. And thank you. I know there is a little gap in between that I'm trying to cover by speaking because it's good to go on right now. Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, there's a real challenge with the trustee elections just in terms of awareness, particularly with people who don't even have children in school. It's just not on their radar at all. I do think the municipal election is a good time to do it and to have it all wrapped into one, because otherwise I don't know if we would get people out to vote at all. So getting it all done at once is good. I think it's just a matter of getting the word out about what trustees are, what we do, who the candidates are. It just kind of gets ignored by media a lot, so I'm really thankful that you organized this today. Because yeah, I have friends asking me all the time, okay, I'm in Ward B, who do I vote for? And just everyone just needs someone to tell them what to do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Paul Simmons.
I think I do agree with what Emily was saying, that the election, the municipal election, especially with the school board trustees, should be all in one, just so that we do allocate all our resources to the election at one time. And I think while door knocking, I heard the same concerns as most of the other candidates here, that they don't know what the role of a trustee is, right? And they don't know what we do, how we act, and like what we really stand for. And the voice of a trustee, I think, is really for us to be the voice of our students and be the voice of our education system. And if we were to hold that election, I don't think the base of that would be really as significant, because people wouldn't really understand or basically know why we're holding another election, right? So the fact that we have our mayoral candidates, our councillors, and us trustees as candidates also door knocking, getting our voice out there at the same time, all the attention is put on the elections at one time, right? And I think that's what's significant about holding a municipal election altogether, besides the fact of having our trustee election separately. It really pinpoints the fact that trustees are just as important as their councillors and mayors.
Thank you very much. Jan, sir. Thank you again.
I think definitely we should continue to hold trustee elections at this with the municipal election. I think fiscally that's a responsible thing to do. But I think we do need to do more educating about the roles of trustees. It's interesting, just yesterday I presented to a grade 6 class for social studies about what school board trustees do. So ask some grade 6 students and they could probably answer that question. I am really concerned about the ballot issue that's arisen with the school board trustees with this election. And so many people getting the wrong ballots for the wrong wards is a concern. And I do wonder if that wouldn't have happened if it were the councillors who were voting for. If that mix-up had happened for the councillors, whether it would have been taken more seriously. So I do have that niggly part of me that wonders if maybe it would be more fair or more accurate if we had a separate election, but I really don't think we should. But I do think that trustee election is just as important as the council and the mayor, and it needs to be treated as such in terms of procedures.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yes, and no much. Thank you so much.
So everyone pretty much said what I was thinking, but I agree with Nav when it comes to the trustee is on the same ballot as an equalization question, and that opens up that window for polarization between political parties, and that just rots me. That irritated me to no end. So I think instead of moving the trustee off of the ballot, we should remove polarization type questions off of the ballot. I think that's really the only divide that I had in that procedure. But no, I think the people need to understand, and I think this still helps reinforce the importance of the trustee's role in the community. When I was growing up, I've never met a trustee. Like janitors in a classroom, that's fantastic. But I never had that opportunity or experience as a child to understand what that meant.
Yeah.
So I think again, going back into our curriculum and how we're building our education system, how are we not making that a prime part of our political structure in our discussions in school? So yeah, absolutely keep it on the ballot.
Thank you very much. The next question, Raj will ask the next question. What will take turn from Mr. Willing to left, then and Ms. McKenzie to right. And
Thank you so much. So now the question is for you, and it's going to be for everybody here. Most important change you think we need in our education system?
That's a really good question because it's something that needs to be addressed, not just in ward, but also the public education system. I think there's two main changes, but one of the things is that we need to really start lobbying against the new draft curriculum that has been proposed by the UCP and the Alberta government. The reason I think that is because it opens the floodgates to a lot of racism, discrimination, and a lot of bigotry within our classroom, right? And with the ward especially being such a diverse community, that we have areas like Laurel, Millwoods, Ellerslie, and all the other communities, right? They have so many different cultures, religions, and we have to be able to bring those religions, cultures, those viewpoints into our classrooms, right? And incorporate those into our classrooms so our students feel safe and they feel included, right? And the one main problem, I think there's a lot of main problems, but one of the main problems is that the curriculum is very Eurocentric, right? And they want to teach us things that are beyond the knowledge levels of our students, especially in K to 6. One of the things that I do have a problem with would be the critical thinking. They mentioned the word identifying the curriculum in the English language, especially 157 times, right? And then that's something that our students can understand pretty easily. But if you were to look at other words that really need to broaden the knowledge of the students, they're only mentioned about 3 or 4 times. So I think that the K to 6 curriculum is a really big problem that needs to be addressed within this election and the education.
Thank you very much. And now we will invite Jen, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really, for me, I see it as an issue working with the provincial government. They're the ones who fund education, who make policies, and they have guided our education system. The curriculum is one thing. Funding has not been adequate or predictable. For example, they don't fund enrollment growth in Edmonton, well, in any system. So the funding is the same, but with more students, it effectively has decreased for each student. For inclusion to be truly effective, it needs to be properly supported. Assessments cost money, staffing and support, supplies, all of those sorts of things require money, and the money again comes from the province. There are many schools within Edmonton Public and Ward I specifically that need to be modernized. We need a high school in Ward I. We need teachers, support staff, and custodial staff, and maintenance staff to be properly funded, to be properly paid, to both attract and keep them. I think we need to be really transparent and relentless when advocating to the province. I think we need to work with other jurisdictions and get the support from the province that we need fiscally and in terms of policy.
Thank you so much. Now we would like to invite Ricardo.
Wasn't sure which direction we were going. Very simply, funding is a huge one. Funding obviously has been gutted by the provincial government, and we don't have mental health supports in schools. I think is a massive thing. We don't have those proper people that are trained properly, like social workers in our schools that need to support our children. Our K to 6 program specifically is so foundational. Like our kids spend more time at school than they do at home. They come home, it's eat, go to sports, go to bed, but in school, that's where their formative stuff comes from, right? They spend more time there. So we really need to invest in that. If we're not even investing in that, like I don't understand what we're investing in. So I think funding is a massive problem in the education system. So there needs to be more supports, and then we can actually do programming, then we can do funding. And I think a creative way, second would be a creative way of not treating every child the same. Like we need to really understand that, there's that little comic where it has a tree, you have a bear and a rabbit and a snake, and they're like, hey, everybody climb that tree. We're gonna grade you on. Everybody's willing to climb that tree. Every kid is different. Every kid learns different. And I see that on the soccer field. I'm not gonna get my keeper and then go, oh, you didn't, run as fast as my striker. You're a bad soccer player. No, it's every kid has a different spot and a different learning style. So I think building that into curriculum and how we structure our education, I think, is extremely important.
Thank you so much, and I will invite Jude Coward. We are going to go to Emily McKenzie. Thank you so much.
There's one issue that every other issue keeps kind of leading into, and that is class sizes. And it does relate to funding, obviously. The only way to reduce class sizes is to build more schools, have more classrooms, have more staff in those classrooms. But when we talk about like COVID safety, we can't distance properly, we can't isolate properly when classes are over 30 kids. When we talk about kids who are disabled and need some more support, and the different number of kids we could serve. If we serve children better in elementary school, that we're not suspending them in junior high, we're not punishing them in high school because we supported them the whole way, we haven't let them down. So, we really just need to keep calling on the province to give us the proper support, get us that high school report high, and get the class sizes down so that we can serve children better.
Thank you very much. Time to watch. Thank you so much, Emily.
There's a lot of issues. First, funding, like Ricardo said, the new curriculum, they did cut a lot of funding for those students with diverse needs. And there was a research done by the government that there's 42% students that are on a wait list for educational assistance, and 47% children were eligible for PUF funding. That's a lot. And especially for kids with 6 curriculum, that's a big part of the children's development. That's where they grow as a child. The new curriculum is kind of age appropriate, it's lacking on diversity. When I was in grade 1, I was learning how to color the canvas map. I wasn't learning about ancient history, about critical thinking. That's going to put a lot of stress on the student, right? Like Jan said, in Ward, there is no high school here. It's one of the biggest concerns we're hearing. The closest high school for us is Percy Page. Let's say you go to Laurel, closest high school is Percy Page, where your district is Wagner, which is what, 40-minute, 50-minute travel time. It'll be nice having another high school here. And a couple weeks ago, I sat down with the urban planner that works at Edmonton Public School. He was telling me there is a lot of land here, but the land it's either owned by the city and they don't want to give it a public school, or it's owned by Catholic schools and they want to build Catholic schools. Right? But as a school board trustee, what you can do is negotiate the land. You can negotiate the land to buy from them, build a high school there. That's how you want the biggest issues we're facing right now.
Thank you so much, and now I'm going to call. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I think we've all established that one of the largest issues in public education today is the belief system that is driving our current government, which is not providing us the funding that we need to have a robust public infrastructure public system. I think what I'm in the curriculum, of course, that's actually something in my master's program. I was able to work a lot on critical theory, critical race theory, which is being attacked right now, but it actually is one of the leading ways in which we know we can support students today that 10 years they are prepared to live in society. So the curriculum is extremely important. It needs to be reworked. So the trustee actually has very limited scope, right? We can't actually get more money, right? The government gives us, the provincial government gives us money, and the city of Edmonton, the voters, it comes from the property taxes also. So myself as a trustee, what I can do is I'm an organizer. So asking politely a single trustee for discussing as a board is actually not going to push the government. What is going to push the government government are active trustees that are going door to door throughout the year after they're elected and collecting people, right? The community, grassroots way. Students, teachers as well. But mostly the community members to bring us together and ask the government and tell them this is our priorities, regardless of what they want, right? There's that push and pull of being organized neighborhood and community. The other sort of aspect that I can bring into this is, and in my experience in 15 years in education, is a lot of teachers want the education of the diversity in their classroom. So over 80% of the kids in our schools in Ward I are racialized in some way or are have a second language, etc. And a lot of teachers, they come from a different demographic often, and they don't really know. So there's a lot of work to be done, and they want the opportunity, but maybe they're not that. So that's something, the intersection I bring in terms of actively being a trustee, an organizer, advocating for that funding. We need a high school. We need assessments. PUF funding is gone. Working with preschool kids, like that's very important. Setting kids up to read and people who learn that. So these are all issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have 12 minutes.
Now we'll
2 minutes each.
start from Jean Sawyer and we'll go right over to Mr. Casanova. Next question is, can you explain the role and impact on the education system of school trustees? Role and impact. Please. Thank you very much.
The role of a school board trustee is to be a representative of the community that she or he serves, to set policy, to advocate to the province, to hire the superintendent, but primarily I think we represent the community and the people within it. So any concerns that they have, we bring forward, we try to address, we try to problem solve.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now it's going to be Simran Dillon. Thank you, Simran. And
Role and impact.
role and impact, yes.
I think there are many different roles that a trustee is responsible for. I think one of the main ones would be being a representative for our children, our teachers, our students, and like Dan said, also for the community, right? Because it's our parents and our children who need that transparency between what's going on in the schools, where money is being put, and also how we're allocating our funds to really progress our children's education. So I think us having that role and having that role of leadership on our shoulders, we are the ones who need to really, like Trustee said, build up from the grassroots, get opinions from our community members, and education experts, and see how we can progress their education, and basically, be a representative for students or teachers and the.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And now we'll invite Emily McKenzie. Thank you, Emily. And what do you think? What is the role and impact of school trustee in education?
So school trustees are kind of there to, at a high level, determine the direction of the school board, its overall values and policies, less than the kind of day-to-day thing that the superintendent and other people directly involved in running the schools would do. So primarily, it would be to serve the community, the families, the students at our schools, by just kind of guiding the values of the entire school board. In Edmonton, I've really noticed that this school board, Edmonton Public School Board, is really a leader in the province. They tend to take action early.
Alright, that's the alarm on.
Sorry, this is to remind me of early dismissal day. But yeah, they tend to take action early on big issues. They tend to take a strong stance with the Alberta government, and then we really see other school boards in Alberta follow suit. So I think that's a very important role that we serve, just to kind of be a leader in the province.
Thank you so much, and I will invite Dudley Tanoa. Thank you so much, Dudley. And what would you say that the role and impact of school trustee in our education system?
We represent the community, basically the voice of our families, the community, and the students. Give the students the right education to get them. And of course, if there's any issues and concerns the families have, we want to solve them. We want to sit down with the experts in the board and find a solution to that. Also, if elected or not, either way, I will be going door knocking. I will be listening to their concerns. I will be sitting with the school board for sure, getting their concerns out there. That's like basically we'll be advocating the voice for them.
Thank you so much, and Navjot God. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I think Jan would have gotten an A+ in my class if I asked this question. So yeah, it's very upper level governance, and one of the it's the mandate of Edmonton Public School, which is success for each student. If I'm not mistaken. And so, what does that look like as a trustee? Now, I think a trustee depends on the person in terms of their impact, right, and the level of engagement that the trustee themselves as their personality is. And so it could be, a potential could be, organizing in the community, connecting to families directly, organizing youth projects, and just being engaged and being that translator. Also, if your trustee is an advocate, then they will advocate for your children, for example, if they need assessments, if they're having a language barrier or other issues with teachers and administration at the school. A trustee is someone you can phone to say, listen, we're struggling to get our voice heard. Now, it's not expected, actually. It's not a part of the job, where it's mandatory. It's actually, that's where really being diligent in who you're electing is important, and what skills they bring to that position and what they're able to execute in the role.
Thank you so much, Navjot. And Ricardo Casanova, thank you so much. And after, thank you.
Actually, when I was looking at running, I over the years in my community work, I've spent a lot of time with the trustees, Nathan specifically, and really intrigued by what he was doing in the community and how he was collaborating with other stakeholders. So I looked it up, and the role of the trustee is actually defined by ATA. They named policy planners, financial planners, advocates, lobbyists, politicians. All of these different aspects. It's a very involved role because there's so many different stakeholders in the community, whether it's politicians at every government level, or community leaders, community leagues, schools, principals, parent councils. So it's really somebody that can build consensus. It's somebody that can bring the community together, and it has to be somebody that can actually bring all these parties together and build that collaboration. And I think in my role doing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, I spent some time with Tony Flores, who's the advocate for the provincial government for people with disabilities. His advice to me was very, very simple, and it's people. And that's really what I think the trustee needs to be, is especially right now with the way that things are going with the provincial government, we need somebody that can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. मैं अगर एक्सप्लेन करा बहुत बढ़िया डिबेट जा रही है कि अगर स्पीकिंग पंजाबी में बहुत बढ़िया डिबेट जा रही है। थैंक यू वेरी मच। डिबेट में हम ब्रेक के बाद वापस आएंगे। पॉलिटिकल बॉडी है ट्रस्टी जो स्कूल ट्रस्टी है ये अपने इंडिया में एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर है जिथे बीसी एसएसपी सारे लगी और डी रन करते हैं जिनमें अपनी इंडिया ਹੁੰਦਾ फिर पॉलिटिकल एमएलएस ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਵਕਤ ਬੋਡੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਪਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਾਚ ਡਾਕ ਕੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਠੀਕ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਬੋਡੀ ਹੈ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਸਕੂਲ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੂਰੇ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਨੂੰ ਨਿਗਾਹ ਹੇਠ ਰੱਖਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਫੈਸਲੇ ਲਏ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਇਹ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਦੇ ਹਿੱਤਾਂ ਲਈ ਲਏ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਕੀ ਨੀਡਸ ਨਵੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਤੱਕ ਦੀ ਪੂਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਐਕਸਪਲੇਨ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਹੋਰ ਅੱਗੇ ਫਰਦਰ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਹੈਗੇ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਸੋ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ ਫॉर ਜੁਆਇनिंग ਇਨ कभी कुछ कल वापस होंगे ब्रेक के बाद फिर कंटिन्यू रखेंगे अपनी इसी डिबेट के लिए थैंक यू
MyRadio580 AM actually talked to the ward. I think I mentioned it topic. The school board, the trustees, so 6 candidates inside the so if the ones 8 that Thank you very much again. And the question I will start with you, Navjot, so you can please thank you for putting in the meantime. What makes you the right candidate for this important? I know all of you guys are very important. You guys are all very capable. So what makes you to be the best candidate for this job?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. I really had to think about it before I put my name again in the public. Really thinking about the skills that I bring, and I think working in education for the last 15 years, with all the way from preschooler to seniors, and some of the most vulnerable, marginalized people in our society. That experience, professional experience, plus my education in policy and advocacy, specifically with centering the most vulnerable again, puts me in a very good position to be an organizer, a youth advocate, and I'm not sort of, I work for Edmonton Public for a short amount of time, so being a classroom teacher, I don't have those kind of links. I think I can build those and represent the community in a good way, in a really solid way, using my experience, my skills, and being connected to the neighborhood and connected really to the students and the demographic of the students here. Having those lived experiences also just make me a well-rounded.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And now we invite Tanvir to know. Thank you so much. And what makes you the best candidate?
It's a accounting student that helps you out with the budgeting.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Okay, so as an accounting student, they'll help me crash the budgeting, how to help the funding, where it's bringing private tax, the need to cut the funding. So we're having a lot of trouble with funding, especially with students with diversity. One of the main goals would be to improve more resources for those students with special needs. Second would be what makes me a right candidate, I'd say. So young right now, as a recent graduate, I know what the schools are lacking, what this education system needs to work on, and of course, like working with the teachers for the last since grade 7 till high school, I know what the teachers, what they require, like help them out. And of course, coming out of an immigrant family, what my parents struggled with, what my found neighbors, the community would just struggle with, I can listen to their concerns, of course, help out with them. Yeah, that would be it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Elsa. Emily McKenzie, what makes you the best candidate? Thank you.
So when I talk to people about what their priorities are for the board, a lot of it comes down to things that are more in the provincial government's domain, and just wanting someone who be a strong kind of lobbyist for public schools with the provincial government, which is something I've been doing for years. And people keep asking me, like, will you stand up to the UCP? Will you push for these things? And I say, I'll do that anyway. I don't need to be elected to do that, but if I were elected, it would sure give me a lot more influence to do so. I come mainly, as a parent, as a former student of Edmonton Public, and several nieces and nephews in Edmonton Public right now. And I just want to see the best for students, and I want to see them succeed. And I trust myself to have strong values that back that up every day, which is why I do.
Thank you very much. And now we'll call Simran. Simran, please come and tell us about yourself. What do you think makes you the best candidate?
Yeah, so just as every other candidate is very capable and has the right skill set, but I think what really sets me apart from the pack is that I did graduate from the public school system in 2016, so I am able to offer different perspectives, different viewpoints, and because I have that first-hand experience with what's lacking and what resources we need and where to really fund, right, where we're funding to progress our children's education. And with my volunteer experience as well, like with volunteering for mental health and breaking the silence and the Job United Sports Heritage Association, I do have deep roots within the community, and I do know people and who trust me to really do the right thing and progress their children's education and listen to their viewpoints and listen to what they really need changed, right? And yeah, as I'm growing up as well, I hear the same thing, that we do need the younger generation to step up because they, like I said earlier, they can offer a different perspective. And yeah, that's one of the main things that separates me from the pack. And just, we need a voice for our diverse community as well. Like me being Punjabi myself, coming from an East Indian background, Indian parents that are. So said, we need a voice for the diverse community, right? Because with the language barriers, we need someone that our parents can communicate to openly without that language barrier, so we can listen to their concerns and what's on their mind for their children.
Thank you so much. Jen, sorry. Please tell us about yourself. What makes you the best candidate?
I am not young, but I have lots of experience in education. It's what I've devoted my entire life to, is education. I'm passionate about it, I'm knowledgeable, I've developed relationships all across the division that will help me as a trustee. With parents in Ward I've developed relationships, and I take full advantage of those as a trustee to help our students. I volunteered with, I was actually a board member of Family Futures, which is quite predominant in the woods and helps families and young students with all sorts of different things. I have 2 children, grown-up children of color, and although I can't say I've lived their experiences, I've seen what the struggles are that they faced, and I know how devastating it can be to be different. And so and with that experience, I had an understanding of how important it is. I'm only doing it because I care about education. I have experience working with families and problem solving, and I'm not ready to finish my career in education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ricardo Casanova, thank you so much again. And tell us about yourself. What do you think would make you the best candidate out of all the rest of your sitting here?
So not only did I grow up in the woods, but I live here currently. I think that's important. Those are important issues that we see in our community every day. With our kids, playing soccer in the corner, playing basketball behind the school. So I think that's an important piece of people that want to represent our community, that live in our community. Secondly, I grew up in the woods. I was always kind of the token guy, like all my friends were Punjabi, Gujarati, Ismaili, So I grew up in a very, very diverse area, and those are all my best friends from back in the day, right? So the weddings, fantastic food. I grew up very much diverse, and I feel that I can relate to those communities just because I grew up with them. And I'll go back to the role of trustee, that list, planner, policy, advocate, lobbyist, all these things. When I was deciding whether I was going to run, I looked at that list and I was like, yeah, I already do that. Yeah, I already do that. Yeah, I already do that. So I checked all the boxes, and I think I have all of those skill sets from my experience in business and my experience in lobbying with different levels of government, whether it's federal, provincial, or municipal. And I bring consensus and collaboration. That's my strength, is being able to bring people together, because we have to do it. That's the only way we can get solutions.
Thank you. One question for you.
Yeah.
So you're more fluent in Punjabi or Gujarati?
Well, I know all the swear words, I'll tell you that. I learned those in elementary.
You want to start with Mr. Pinova? My question is, I know some of you already have addressed this issue, but one change, if you may, and if you can, in the curriculum, they're saying it's outdated, and there are lots of needed changes required for the curriculum. One change, which is so close to your heart, and I think that will really again.
Especially a lot of people want to it's a language barrier. We live, especially more now, it's a diverse community. We go out every color, every all kind of people, different cultures living here. We want to make sure their students are learning with the right education. Their parents, when they go communicate with the teachers and the principals, they're getting the right teacher aid. I would recommend a teacher aid where they would translate for them, right? Like, so they can break the language barrier, so they don't have to so they know what's going on. Basically, they know what their students learning, what they're getting in the school. That'll be one. So we're only in the there's more though.
Thanks. And one team.
Angie, this curriculum issue is a large one. What I will say from my experience in education, research, and policy is we essentially need to support the boards across the province and the teachers in not implementing the current curriculum as it stands in its draft. They've done quite a bit of work the last 5 years. A lot of research based from kindergarten to grade 6, based on literacy, how we teach a kid to read, based on the newest science of what we know. They've done that work. It's sitting. They just put it to the side and have a new draft curriculum. So what we need to do is we need to support the teachers, the researchers of education to say, put the curriculum that we know is sitting there on your table that has taken over 5 years for researchers and other educators to develop, bring that back and let's start there, and maybe then we can start discussing implementation of this curriculum. So I think as it is, it's a no-go. One of the main issues with that is in 10 years' time, we've seen there will be an issue with when we call ourselves a multicultural country. That is going to be a serious detriment because the curriculum today, you'll see the outcome in 10 to 15, 20 years in terms of incidents of racism, how much we can sit and eat together, and all of these issues. So that is why it's so important to fight and to really, really research that into the
Thank you very much. Mr. Tesoro, please share your thoughts. One thing you do.
So I'll say that the curriculum, like now, is a draft. It's not actually in play right now. So based on that draft curriculum, I think the piece that struck me the most when I was reading through it was the social studies part. It was offensive, if not racist, outright racist. It was Eurocentric. It was us versus them. It was we are this, they are that. Extremely divisive language. That would be something that's got to go. That's garbage. And completely offensive to anybody of the BIPOC community. Anyway, that really got me very upset. So that would be the one. But for one change to the curriculum that currently stands, I would say that at the doors I'm hearing a lot that there's no formalized Punjabi program in our schools. There's Chinese and there's Arabic, but Punjabi is not. Families have to go out of the community to actually do it, right? So, and being able to do that will allow transportation for those families to actually get their kids to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And now I would ask Jean, sir, Jean, sir.
I agree with Matt that there was a brilliant curriculum that was created previous to this draft. It's still in draft, but it was created through experts in education, teachers across the province. It's been students have looked at it, teachers have done lots of professional development, and then it was just thrown aside. And we need to get that curriculum back. That is the curriculum that is appropriate, it's engaging, it respects diversity, it respects Indigenous teaching, it respects our Francophone experiences. We need to get that original draft back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you. Like now I got into Punjabi as well.
One of the main things that I think that need to be changed is how we really view our different cultures, for example, our Indigenous, because the way our Indigenous are viewed in this curriculum specifically is from a historical standpoint, and our Indigenous community, they're vital to the growth of a diverse, inclusive community, right? Because as we're all aware, this is free 6 lands, and we need to acknowledge their need here. And with that being said, what we learn about the Indigenous is based on tokenism, right? We teach it because we can teach it, not because we really value their history and their beliefs and their values. So I think one way that we could change it is by sitting down with curriculum experts, community members, teachers, maybe even take some perspective from students, right? And really sitting down and bringing in Indigenous leaders who know the history firsthand, know what they believe in, know what they think should be taught, right? And this curriculum, was made based off of the government's ability of their opinions, their theoretical views, and they don't know much about what they're really throwing out there in the curriculum, right? So I think this curriculum, it was critiqued and it was assessed by 6,500 people. So I think we need to really get those perspectives from people actively engaged.
Thank you so much. Emily Mackenzie, thank you so much, and please tell us what you think.
I am of the opinion that the curriculum is not fixable, essentially. It shouldn't have been created. Like Jan said, there was a curriculum developed in a much more transparent, expert-backed fashion, which didn't have such an obvious political motivation behind it. So I don't think it's a matter of evaluating the current draft curriculum. I think it's a matter of rejecting it and saying, go back to the curriculum that we had, because this one is a disaster. If I had to pick one thing about the draft curriculum that is a problem, they've kind of subscribed to the notion that you should teach history in chronological order, which is a bizarre idea because you can't. What they're doing when they say they're doing that is picking and choosing what they think is important, which is very much where we get those Eurocentric ideas coming in, because that's being valued. It's also too much information, isn't there? There's simply too much. So we should stick to the way it's done now, which is where students start by learning about their community, and then they learn about their province, their country from there, moving outwards toward themselves to understand the broader world. And when we don't try to cram all these facts and dates and lists of things and things in there, there's more room for the communities themselves to teach about themselves rather than teaching about other places in the world. So schools in different parts of Edmonton even will have dramatically different communities, different makeups, different culture, different religion. We need to be able to let them run with that and teach what is relevant to their students.
Thank you very much. And a very important question. There's a growing trend of private schools in here. And where does public school board positions itself? Where the future is for the public school? And I will start with Jan Sarah. Thank you so much. And I see you nodding your head. You're listening to the question very well. Okay, here we go.
One great thing about Edmonton Public Schools is the diverse programs that it offers. It offers religious programming, language programming, special needs programming. As you said, maybe we need to have some more language programs, but that is one thing. We need to keep public dollars in public education. And by offering the diverse number of programs that every public does, I don't think there's really a need for people to go to private schools. Additionally, we need to keep working on our inclusion and making sure all our needs, all our students' needs are met, whether they have special learning needs or whether they have second language issues. We need to address all of those within the public system. And public dollars cannot go to private schools.
Thank you so much. And I will invite Ricardo. Yes, and no, tell us what you think about that.
I agree with Jan. I think part of inclusion is exposure and experience, right? So I'll go back to me growing up. Like after school, we'd go to my friend's house, and his mom would have food, right? And we would see the different religious symbols and cultural symbols and that sort of thing. Like if I'm segregated in a private school away from people of different cultures, I'll never have that exposure. I'll never have that experience, right? So ultimately, grows ignorance without having that exposure, right? So private schools just segregate kids maybe of a certain belief system or whatever that looks like, but ultimately they're not getting exposure to the real life, to the real community that they live in. And I don't think, I'm all about inclusion, and that flies in the face of inclusion in our communities.
Thank you very much. And Navjot Kaur, your views on this, please.
I have a lot of them. So I'll start off by saying, no public money for private, period. That is our right. Public good, public schools are a public good. They are a place where we can have equity, equality. Doesn't matter what family you're born into, you have a right to an education. And us as Canadians, we take a lot of pride in that. So that's something we need to establish, that the public role of the public school board, of the public space, it's very important. And so private schools, I'm not really against them. If you have the means and you're organizing in your community and you guys have the privileges it takes to organize a private school, by all means, have your private school, but no public dollars should go into that situation.
Thank you so much.
If I may say also, I'm also strongly against police in our schools. Also, no funding towards police in our schools.
Thank you. That means next person.
We're doing that, like we pay taxes, like we put public schools, public education, schools that have a lot of diversity, different cultures coming in, a lot of option classes and sports for the special needs students. And then you bring in private school, that brings in segregation, like Rio says. You're literally isolating the student from other culture, from meeting other people from different backgrounds. That will have a bad effect on the student. And plus, we shouldn't be paying money to go to school. Public education is for everyone. Everyone should be able to go there. It should be the right to get an education for all students.
Thank you very much. Emily Mackenzie. What can you say about that?
I 100% believe that public schools should be the only schools that receive any government funding. Right now we have not only private schools, but we have second school boards for Catholic schools, which really people in the Roman Catholic, they don't make up a very large portion of Edmontonians at least. It doesn't seem to justify its existence. We also have charter schools, which the current Minister of Education is really encouraging, basically, making it easier for them to start up or outside of public school boards. And a lot of the charter schools, to be honest, do really great work. Some of them serve primarily at-risk youth, some of them serve primarily disabled children. But we could do that through the public school board with those same funds. So I believe in trying different formats, new strategies, new programs. But I want that done within the public system so that everyone has equal access to it and it's done in a way that's more fair and equitable.
Thank you so much. Simran Billy, what do you see about this?
I think we all agree that public knowledge should stay in public schools. The main reason being that education is a basic right for all. And our children who are in the public school system, they deserve the best education. Whether that be through different option classes, different cultural standpoints being taught, right? Different subjects. And at the end of the day, you gotta look at it like, if you are in the public school system, you deserve the best education. And if we're throwing out our budget to other schools who don't value the same beliefs, don't teach the same way that the public school system is teaching, it really hinders the education of our students in the public education system. They don't receive the best funding. They don't receive the full amount of privilege and basically the biggest. What I'm trying to say is they don't receive the best education that they get, right? And I think that's why public dollars should stay within the public school system because that's the only way we're going to give our education the best education.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming today. Let me tell you one thing. This is if I rate all the broadcasting live, if I want to rate at the top notch hour I have spent doing anything, this is what it is. We celebrated democracy, we talked about education, and all of you are most deserving candidates. Nobody attacked nobody. Everybody stick to their own personal belief, and I love that. I have I have written here, read below, and you can ask questions with teachers. I don't think we need that. There's no disagreement here. We are all here celebrating education and all here to improve, finding a way to improve the education system. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. And I really enjoyed this a lot. Today is the best day and best day I have had. And thank you very much for that. And yes.
And then we will give each candidate 2 minutes to come to the podium and say your words to
Conclude, yes.
and people who are listening to the show. I will start with Emily McKenzie. Emily, please go ahead. And your message to our listeners at this time.
So just to reiterate, my core belief is that public schools need to serve every student, and that means people who don't have the means to pay school fees shouldn't have to. No one should have to pay school fees. It should be completely publicly available. Students who are disabled, who are neurodiverse, they should be able to be in the classroom with their peers, fully supported. My own son, next year he's going into a program which is only for autistic children, and he's used to being at a child care center with Head Start programs, where it's a mix. It's all kinds of different children, all kinds of different backgrounds, and all kinds of different abilities, and it's really wonderful to watch. And I'm honestly devastated that it's not happening next year. But that is the only way I can get him support within the public school system, is to put him into a completely segregated classroom. So that needs to change. We need our schools to be supportive of all children, regardless of race, regardless of whether they speak English fluently, regardless of whether they're involved in GSAs. I really want to protect GSAs and protect those kids. If they are in abusive situations, we shouldn't be kind of telling on them to their parents. We need to respect our children. So that's my core belief. That's what guides every platform point that I have. I just simply want all students, all families to be served as well as they can be by public schools and never feel like they're not welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. It was really nice meeting all you guys. Another platform would be we want to focus on local needs, accessibility, and curricular advancement. Especially the new draft K-6, we want to make sure that is not coming back. We want to improve that. And also, with the funding getting cut off for students with diverse needs, we want to make sure students, especially say, getting the right support and the resources so they have equal education as other students and they don't feel isolated. And especially families, a lot of families, even though we're trustees, right, we want to make sure we hear their concerns and we get the solution to it. Yesterday I had a phone call from a parent and he was talking to a current school board trustee, and I'm not going to say her name, but she had been ignoring the issue for months now, and the parent felt really frustrated, right? So we decided to call.
That I believe in the UN Charter of Rights for Children. It's not something that's talked about a lot, but it is the most ratified convention that the UN has ever had by countries all around the world, particularly Article 12 and Article 16. And it really talks about the children's right to education and free education, for that matter. I really believe that this is the core, this is the foundation of our community, is our kids. Like I said, they spend more time at home or in school than they do actually at home, right? So we need to provide them the supports that they need. And that comes into inclusion. So diversity, equity, inclusion needs to be core in our offering when it comes to children. When we talk about children with special needs, we just need to do more. And the way it is today, it's not inclusive. In some of my work in doing some inclusion discussions, talking about Inclusion Alberta, they said taking a child away from their peers and secluding them is brutal, and that's what you're talking about. And I actually didn't really think about it until we had those conversations, but I want my kids to be able to interact with children of all sorts and have comfort with those children and not fear, right? And I think that's where hate comes from. It starts with fear. I don't understand that this child has a different need, so children automatically go away from that kid, right? Whether it's cultural or ability-based, whatever it is. And that's heartbreaking, especially at a child's level. So I think if we can foundationally fix some of those things when it comes to inclusion, our generation 10, 15 years down the road is already better off. So please vote October 18th. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dan Sar,
It's been such a pleasure to meet all of you, and I'm so glad to know that no matter who wins, we'll be in a great situation. So thank you for that. My vision for education in Edmonton Public Schools is based on the belief that a sound public education system is vital to the creation of an equitable and prosperous society. All students and families will feel welcome, represented, healthy, safe, and successful in schools. Funding is sustainable and adequate enough to ensure that all students have access to appropriate, effective programming. Families feel included and are genuine partners in education for their children. Teachers are supported through relevant professional development, support for physical and mental health, and providing adequate compensation to attract and retain quality teachers is in place. Alberta has had an education system that has been world-renowned for its curriculum, quality teaching, and astounding results. This system is currently under dire threat, and trustees must advocate for a system of education for which all Albertans can be proud. I have the education, experience, relationships, and energy to support the education all students in where I deserve.
thank you so much. Simran Gill. Yes, Simran.
Once again, I'd like to thank you two for organizing this debate and allowing us to come out here and speak about our platforms. Also, thank you to everyone who's been listening and in on this debate. And I hope any questions that anyone may have had have been addressed. And I strongly urge each and every one of you guys to go vote on October 18th if you already haven't. And also, another huge thank you to everyone that is here today and allowing us to have a conversation to be so transparent about the roles and responsibilities of a trustee, because I know that was a big concern for a lot of the community members. And I think mayors and councillors, they've been getting more focused in the past, and school trustees are just as important, if not more, as we are the voice of our education system. And with that being said, I truly believe with my background and experiences, and then most importantly, my young age, it allows me to not only bring a fresh perspective to the school board, but it also means that I can strongly connect with this generation of students. And as a recent student, as well as a member of the community, I have not seen any significant changes, whether that be first-hand or second-hand experience within the community, right? And we need these changes that actually progress our children's education, and we desperately need that new voice that have that first-hand experience and can connect with the students. And I think the flaws of the education system, and most importantly, the needs of the students, they may not be evident to someone who has been involved for so long, just because of the complacency that comes along with that. And I think it's time that we have change, even if it's from a younger voice, because I think change is for the better to allow our students to thrive and progress our children's education.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Thank you very much, everybody.
Definitely. Thank you very much once again, ladies and gentlemen. One thing I'll promise to you is tomorrow we'll do a half an hour program and just before we go. And the form for it is you take tomorrow all the boxes. I'll do that ready from tomorrow for half an hour. And I did that once already. And that had created quite a bit of awareness, and both of us did that. And there were many calls after it. People are saying we never do this. Then we have to vote for mayor, councillor, school trustees, and there is senator. We have to 3 senators, and there is a 2 referendum we have to vote for. So I'll do that tomorrow once again to remind people before they head out to vote on 18. And thank you very much. And this is a pleasure for us to hold this debate today. And I wish you all the best to all of you. I wish you all become trustee, but but whoever will be, I know we are in good hands. Thank you very much. Best wishes to you.